Before dawn, the Theodosian Walls shake like a living thing. A cannon's roar rolls across the plain, and the air turns gritty with smoke and powdered stone. Torches flicker along the ditch. Drums thud in a slow, relentless pulse. In the half-light, the Ottoman Empire's ranks stretch wider than the eye can hold, lines of shields, dark flags, silhouettes moving with practiced calm. Inside the city, the defenders, barely 7,000, stand packed behind splintered barricades, listening to each impact as if it's a countdown. A battered gate creaks, mortar dust drifts through the seams. Somewhere on the wall, a bell rings once, then stops, swallowed by shouting. Then comes the sound that terrifies even the brave, the deep crack of masonry giving way. A section near the front shivers, slumps, and the gap begins to open wide enough for a man, then two, then a wave. The defenders tighten their grip, staring into the breach where 80,000 troops of the Ottoman Empire are ready to surge. So how does a city with 7,000 hold a wall the world has decided will fall? Hours earlier, the city is already a fortress of exhaustion. Constantinople is not just stone and towers, it is the last heavy door between two eras. The defenders know what the world whispers, that the empire inside these walls has shrunk to a memory, while the Ottoman Empire outside has become a machine. Mehmed II, young and obsessed with this prize, has brought not only soldiers but engineers, carpenters, miners, and gunners, an entire moving city devoted to breaking another city. For Byzantium, there are no endless reserves. Every arrow is counted, every man is used twice, once on the wall, once hauling rubble to patch the next crack. The sea offers little comfort. The enemy fleet watches the straits like a closing fist. And yet the defenders hold on because the walls have held for 1,000 years. Because surrender is not merely losing a battle, it is losing a name, a faith, a capital that once commanded the world's trade and imagination. In the Ottoman camp, confidence is real, but so is impatience. A siege is a race between stone and will, and Mehmed intends to win it fast. But the defenders still have one advantage the Ottoman commanders cannot measure. To understand why this siege is different, the camera has to pull back from the smoke and look at the map. Constantinople sits like a lock on the Bosporus, controlling the passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Whoever holds it can tax ships, throttle rivals, and decide which empires breathe and which suffocate. For Mehmed, it is also personal, an unfinished story handed down by sultans who tried and failed. Now the Ottoman Empire has the money, the manpower, and the discipline to try again, and Mehmed has the nerve to bet everything on one season. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine II walks the walls like a man who knows there will be no rescue parade over the horizon. Western Europe debates and delays. A few ships arrive, brave but not enough. The most precious help comes in the form of experience. Hardened soldiers, sailors, and commanders who have seen sieges up close and know that panic kills faster than steel. The defenders repair at night, pray at dawn, and ration hope like food. Outside, the Ottoman army builds its own world trenches, batteries, supply lines tightening the circle day by day. And as the siege settles into routine, the most dangerous moment approaches. The day routine breaks. The first weeks become a brutal rhythm. By day, Ottoman gunners adjust their aim with calm precision, walking shots along the walls until they find a seam that answers back with fractures. By night, defenders climb into the dust and darkness to rebuild what daylight destroyed packing stones, bracing beams, dragging shattered blocks into place until their hands bleed and their arms go numb. The Ottoman Empire tests every corner, feints at one gate, probing attacks at another, arrows and stones traded across the ditch like insults. The defenders learn to read the enemy's body language. When the drums quicken, when torches mass, when the shouting turns from noise into direction. Inside the city, civilians carry water, haul rubble, and sleep in bursts, listening for the sudden sound of iron on wood that means a ladder has reached the top. Mehmed is not merely waiting for the walls to crumble. He is searching for a shortcut, something that turns months into minutes. So the Ottoman engineers do what sieges have always done best. They go underground, picks strike earth in hidden tunnels, and the war becomes a contest of listening ears pressed to stone, candles flickering in cramped air, men holding their breath to catch the faintest scrape beneath their feet. And one night, the defenders hear it. The tunnel war begins in silence. Beneath the battered walls, Ottoman miners crawl through tight earthworks, breathing dust, measuring distance by instinct and prayer. Above them, The defenders answer with their own counter-tunnels. Lantern light trembling on damp stone as men press their ears to the ground. Sometimes they hear it faint scraping, a rhythm that doesn't belong to rats or roots. Then comes the decision: dig toward the sound and risk a collapse, or wait and let the Ottoman Empire choose the moment of detonation. In one cramped passage, the two worlds finally meet. A shout echoes underground. Torches flare. The air turns thick with smoke from hurried fires meant to choke a tunnel and force the enemy back. Sections cave in with a dull, heavy thump, and for a few hours, the defenders believe they bought time. But time is exactly what Mehmed refuses to give them. Above ground, the cannons resume with renewed cruelty, battering the same section until the stone looks bruised. The ditch fills with rubble. The wall begins to sag in a way that no patchwork can fully hide. And while everyone stares at that wounded spot, the Ottoman camp moves with a different kind of purpose. Trees felled, logs greased, ropes tightened, preparing something that doesn't aim at the wall at all. Then one dawn, the harbor wakes to an impossible sound, creaking wood on rollers coming from the hills behind it. The defenders rush to the seawalls expecting sails, but what they see is worse. Ships, not in the water, on land. Over greased timbers and rolling logs, Ottoman crews drag vessels across the hills, hauling them like giant beasts of burden, inch by inch, while drums keep the tempo and commanders shout the cadence. By midday, the Ottoman Empire has done the unthinkable. It has bypassed the chain that guards the Golden Horn and slipped a fleet into the harbor behind the city's strongest walls. Inside Constantinople, the shock hits like cold water. The harbor was supposed to be the safe side, the place where defenders could breathe. Now it is another front, another set of parapets to man, another night shift with no extra bodies to cover it. The camera cuts wide. The city's defenders, only 7,000, are stretched thinner with every new threat, forced to choose which wall gets the stronger hand and which wall must gamble on faith. Mehmed watches the panic ripple through the skyline and understands what siegecraft really is. Not just breaking stone, but breaking certainty. Yet this new advantage comes with a risk. Ships packed into a harbor can be trapped, burned, or shattered if the defenders strike hard enough. In the darkness, the Byzantines plan a desperate counterblow, a sudden raid meant to turn the Golden Horn into a funeral pyre. And in the Ottoman camp, lookouts lean into the night wind, waiting for the first spark. The raid begins with oars muffled and voices swallowed. Small boats slip from the shadowed seawall, carrying men who know they may not return. The plan is simple: hit the Ottoman ships in the Golden Horn before they can fully settle in, ignite chaos, and buy the city a breath of space. For a moment, it almost works. Flames catch on pitch. The water reflects a jittering orange, and shouts spike across the harbor. But the Ottoman Empire has eyes everywhere. Alarm drums erupt. Arrows hiss into the night. Searchlights of torch and lanterns sweep the surface until the raiders are no longer ghosts but targets. The attack collapses into confusion, and the boats that survive stagger back toward the city with too few men aboard. At dawn, the harbor is quieter than expected. No sweeping victory, no broken siege, just the realization that the enemy fleet is still there, and now fully awake. Mehmed's response is immediate. He fortifies the ships, increases patrols, and tightens the pressure on land so the defenders can't focus on one front without losing another. On the main walls, cannon smoke hangs like a permanent cloud. Stones crumble in slow motion, each crack expanding under repeated blows. Inside the city, Constantine the Xi gathers commanders and speaks without illusion. There will be no miracle army appearing at the gates. If Constantinople survives, it will be because exhausted men refuse to stop repairing, fighting, and standing. And outside, Mehmed sets the timetable. The next assault won't be a test. It will be meant to end everything. Mehmed turns the siege into a clock. Every evening, officers walk the lines counting ladders, ropes, fastens, bundles of arrows, barrels of powder, anything that can be carried forward when the order finally comes. Fires burn in rows across the Ottoman camp, not for warmth but for discipline, so every unit knows its place in the dark. The Ottoman Empire has the luxury of mass, waves that can absorb failure and come again. Constantinople does not. On the walls, the defenders rotate in shivering shifts, eyes raw from smoke, hands stiff from lifting stone all night. They build fresh barricades behind the weakest sections, turning streets into secondary trenches in case the outer line breaks. A veteran commander watches the battered stretch near the Street Romanus gate and knows the truth. The wall is still standing, but it's no longer whole. It is a wounded structure pretending to be solid. Constantinople moves through the ranks with a calm that feels almost unreal, speaking to men who haven't slept properly in days, reminding them that 7,000 can only survive by acting like one body. Outside, Mehmed reserves his best troops. Janissaries held back like a final argument. Then, on a windless night, the cannons fall silent. Not because they're spent, but because silence is the signal. And when the drums begin again, they don't test the walls, they announce the storm. The assault opens like a wave hitting rock. First come irregular troops and volunteers, pushed forward in dense crowds, shouting to drown out fear. They rush the ditch, throwing in bundles of brush and rubble to create footing, raising ladders into a haze of smoke and dust. The defenders answer with everything they have: arrows, stones, burning pitch, anything that can force a body to step back without turning the wall into a charnel house. The camera drops to ground level. Boots slide in mud, men trip over broken shields, ladders wobble as hands fight for rungs. Above, the defenders lean over parapets with faces gray from powder and fatigue, trying to keep the breach from becoming a door. The first wave breaks and recoils, leaving the ditch cluttered with abandoned gear and bodies that do not move, while survivors drag themselves away, coughing and stunned. But the Ottoman Empire doesn't pause to mourn. The second wave arrives, heavier organized units with shields locked, pushing forward under covering fire, aiming straight at the weakest section. For a moment, the defenders feel the wall breathe stone, vibrating under impact, the wood braces groaning behind it. A crack widens, a chunk drops. Shouts spike as a ladder finally bites into the rim of the breach. And then the defenders see the outline they feared most. Janissaries forming in the rear, waiting to be unleashed through the opening they're forcing into existence. As the second wave surges, the defenders stop thinking in grand strategy and start thinking in meters. Every step the attackers gain is paid for with a counterstep. Every ladder that reaches the top is met by hands that shove it back into the ditch. The breach near Street Romanus becomes a living choke point, dust, smoke, and the constant scrape of boots on stone. Constantinople's commanders throw reserves into the gap, men who haven't eaten properly in days, men whose armor no longer fits right because their bodies have shrunk under weeks of hunger and strain. Yet discipline holds. A small line becomes a wall within a wall, shields overlapping, spears angled forward, eyes fixed on the next surge. Outside, Mehmed watches the pattern. He sees where the defenders are strongest, and he sees where their strength is an illusion created by desperation. He orders his gunners to concentrate again, not everywhere, just here. The cannon booms return, measured and merciless, pounding the same scar until it becomes a wound. Each blast lifts a cloud that hides the true shape of the damage, and that uncertainty is deadly. When the smoke thins, the defenders realize the parapet has lowered by inches. The footing is worse. The barricade behind them has shifted. The city is running out of stone to replace stone. And in the Ottoman lines, the Janissaries begin to move, not running, marching, as if they already know the wall is about to give them an entrance. The Janissaries enter the fight like a door finally opened. Their drums are tighter, faster, and their line moves with a cold patience the earlier waves didn't have. Behind tall shields, they advance into the ditch, climbing over broken ladders and shattered timber as if the ground itself is irrelevant. On the wall, the defenders feel the shift immediately. This is no longer noise and numbers. This is pressure with purpose. The battered breach becomes a funnel, and the Ottoman Empire begins to pour its best troops into it, trying to turn the gap into a permanent mouth. The defenders answer with a last, stubborn discipline, men shoulder to shoulder, voices hoarse, pushing back with the strength that comes from having nowhere else to go. Then a new sound cuts through everything, a cry that spreads faster than any order. A key commander near the breach collapses under exhaustion and injury, and the men around him hesitate for a heartbeat too long. In a siege, a heartbeat is a doorway. Word races along the wall misheard, exaggerated, fatal. He's down. The line is failing. The breach is lost. Constantine XI forces his way toward the gap, trying to stop panic before it becomes a second enemy. But the smoke is thick, the footing is broken, and the Janissaries are already climbing into the uncertainty. If the defenders lose control of that single rumor, will the wall fall before the stone does? Panic is the most contagious weapon on the battlefield, and both sides know it. Mehmed's officers shout the same promise forward. The city is cracking. The defenders are finished. One more push, and the Ottoman Empire will be inside. On the walls, Constantine XI fights a different war against collapse of spirit. He moves through smoke and dust, visible enough to be seen, close enough to be believed. Orders snap out. Men are yanked back into place. The line stiffens again, and for a moment the breach holds, not because it's strong, but because the defenders refuse to let it be weak. Then comes the near disaster that changes everything. A small gate, used for sorties and urgent movement, is left vulnerable in the chaos of shifting units and broken barricades. It is not a grand betrayal, not a dramatic cinematic twist, just the kind of mistake exhaustion makes possible. In the gray light, Ottoman troops find it. A few slip through, then more, moving fast to widen a foothold before anyone understands what's happening. Inside the city's outer defenses, shouts erupt from the wrong direction. Defenders glance back, confusion spreading like ink in water. Is the breach behind them? Is the wall already lost? The commanders try to seal the gap, but every man pulled away from the main breach weakens the front line. And in the Ottoman camp, Mehmed senses the moment every siege is built to create. The instant when the city's defenses are forced to fight in two directions at once. The fight stops being a line and becomes a fracture. Near the battered breach, the defenders hear shouting from behind their own positions, too close, too sudden. A handful of Ottoman troops have slipped through that small gate and climbed into the chaos of the inner defenses, striking where the city was never meant to be attacked. It's not an army yet, it's a spark, but sparks are enough when men are this tired. Units spin around, unsure which threat is real, and every glance backward steals attention from the wall in front. At the breach, the Janissaries sense the hesitation and press harder, shields rising like a moving roof. Somewhere in the smoke, a respected commander is carried away, wounded and unable to continue, and the rumor hits the defenders like a punch. The strongest hand on the wall is gone. The trench fills with noise orders, prayers, screams until the sound stops meaning anything at all. Then a new sight cuts through the haze, a dark banner lifting above the rubble, planted where the wall has finally dipped low enough to climb. For the Ottoman Empire, that flag is more than cloth. It's a message to every soldier watching. The city can be entered. For the defenders, it's a question with no safe answer. Do they surge forward to throw it down, or pull back to keep the streets from turning into the next battlefield? The final sequence comes in a rush of collapsing boundaries. At the main breach, Janissaries climb over rubble and broken stone, not sprinting wildly but advancing in tight, relentless steps. Defenders slam into them at close range, pushing, stabbing, grappling for footing in dust so thick it turns the morning into dusk. The city's last reserves are thrown into the gap, and for minutes, it feels like the walls themselves are fighting. Every shove answered by another, every gain met by a desperate counter. But the Ottoman Empire has what Constantinople cannot: depth. When one unit stalls, another slides in behind it, fresh enough to keep pressing. Then the pressure finally breaks through. A section gives way, and the breach becomes a passage. The defenders retreat in bursts, trying to form new lines at street corners and makeshift barricades, but the momentum is already shifting. Mehmed's orders are clear. Keep moving, keep the defenders from regrouping, turn fear into flight. By late morning, the city's skyline changes, smoke rising from scattered fires, bells ringing in confusion, crowds moving with the stunned instinct of people realizing history is happening to them. On the ground, abandoned shields and shattered ladders lie everywhere, silent proof of what was paid for this moment. The echo after the thunderclap is worse than the noise. A city hearing its own defenses fall quiet. When Constantinople falls, the world does not end in a single dramatic instant, it changes direction. For the survivors, the first hours are disbelief. Streets filled with smoke, doors barred, people listening for the next shout, the next boot step, the next order. For Mehmed II, it is the moment the Ottoman Empire becomes more than a rising power. Taking the city means controlling the hinge between seas, inheriting the prestige of an ancient capital, and announcing to rivals that a new center of gravity has arrived. The defenders stand 7,000 against 80,000 becomes a grim lesson in limits. Walls can delay fate, courage can buy time, but numbers, organization, and relentless pressure can eventually turn stone into dust. In the immediate aftermath, borders harden and alliances rethink themselves. Trade routes adjust. Fear travels faster than ships, reaching courts and ports that suddenly understand how close the Ottoman Empire now stands. And the legacy stretches far beyond the smoke of that morning. The fall of Constantinople becomes a symbol of an old world closing its gates and a new power stepping through. Because when 7,000 defenders face 80,000 troops and the walls finally open, it isn't just a city that falls, it's the balance of history itself.